Hi, I'm Mindy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a wrap-up for Horror Mayhem and Zombiethon. Horror Mayhem is a reading event that I have been co-hosting all through May, created by the Bookish Bryants, and it's all about reading short horror. And the theme was to read as many different decades as you can. Decades of Dread, which I did try to do. And Zombiethon is another reading event and watch-a-thon created by Kat's Novel Adventures. And I love zombie stories, so I love combining these two events because they work so well together, because there are plenty of short zombie tales that you can read. So I am going to tell you about all of the movies and books, stories that I read from the 1st to the 26th, which is the day that I am filming this. And this will be my mostly all wrap up for these events. However, I will have another wrap up the first week of June that will be for my non-horror reads, as well as any last minute horror that I finish in the month. There will be a few, I know. If I finish them, I think I will. So far in the month, most of the month, I've read 15 things, and I watched 6 horror movies that I'd like to tell you about. I am not just including zombie movies, because Horror Mayhem can be about horror movies as well, and I've watched some from different decades, and I'd like to share them with you. And I'm gonna start with the movies. The first movie I'm going to talk about is Corpse Eaters from 1974, which is a zombie movie that is very indie, was created with $32,000 or something like that in the 70s in Canada. And we watched this as a watch party for Zombiethon because one of our online friends' grandmother starred in this movie, so it was so fun to watch it together. I also watched Day of the Dead from 1985, the third movie in the George Romero zombie movies, and this was actually a really interesting movie. It follows a group of survivors from the zombie apocalypse living underground in a research facility where they are trying to figure out ways to cure or control the zombies. Has a really cool main character, slightly unhinged mad scientist type character, and some really nasty pieces of work as security and a zombie, and a really cool zombie that the scientist is experimenting on to see if he can control what he does, with interesting results, and makes a very cool zombie character. The next movie I watched is from 2021, and that is Donnie Darko, which is not necessarily a horror movie, but it is very dark, and it has this creepy bunny costume thing. But it is a mind-bending movie, one of my favorites. Time travel very cool. I watched this because it was the movie club pick for the Midnight Film Society, hosted by Kelsey from Slime and Slashers, and she did a big discussion video live, and she had so many great insights, and it was so cool watching that video with her thoughts. Next, I watched One Cut of the Dead from 2017. This is from Japan, and it's a really interesting zombie movie. It's about people. Okay, wait. It's a movie about people making a live TV series all in one cut. So it shows this end result, and then it goes back and shows how they made it and all the wild things that were going on in the background as they were trying to make this live one cut TV episode. And it was really interesting how they did it, and a really great movie. And then I watched 2 new release movies in theater so far in May, and they are going to be my only 2, pretty sure. But first one was Clown in a Cornfield, and I really enjoyed the book by Adam Caesar, and the movie was such a fun thriller. The characters are very stereotypical on purpose, and it was very, very humorous, very funny, and good kills. And who doesn't love a clown, a killer clown, right? Friendo the Clown. I just feel like this was a fun enough movie that I would watch it over and over. It's always a good sign. Both of my new releases are kind of like a not tons of substance, just fun roller coaster. Enjoy the turn off your brain and enjoy the ride kind of movies. And the other one is Final Destination Bloodlines, and I love the Final Destination movies. They always have the most bizarre, interesting kills. Death coming for people that should have died but somehow escaped. And death kills them in bizarre kind of ways. This one had a little bit new added in, a little bit more to say. However, it's still just a fun ride kind of movie, and this one was a lot of fun. Again, I was laughing, and there were some gruesome parts, and it was just a good time. I do love horror movies, and I'm glad I got to watch these. And now into the novellas, short stories, comic books, and novels that I read for Horror Mayhem and Zombiethon. I'm gonna go kind of like I did in the movies, in order of the date published, so you can get all of the decades that I went through for Decades of Dread. The oldest story that I read is called The Parasite by Arthur Conan Doyle. It was first published in 1884, and I have it in this a mammoth book of short horror novels. And they're like novella length or shorter. Kind of like long short stories, really. I mean, the whole book is 500 pages, and there's quite a few stories. 10 stories. And there's 10 stories, so they're about 50 pages a piece on average. The Parasite was a story about hypnotism, and it's about a woman who is a hypnotist, and she hypnotizes this man who is like a skeptic, but he finds out she's the real deal, and she is using her power of suggestion to completely take over his life and wants him for herself. Very devious female antagonists in this one. Then I read Who Goes There by John W. Campbell, and this was originally published in 1938, and this is the short story or novella that inspired the Thing movies. I love a good sci-fi horror. There's definitely a lot of sci-fi in this, and it is a horror story as well, and I absolutely love this. I had no idea really what it was about. I haven't seen The Thing yet, and I need to. Hoping that might be a movie I get to later this month, at least either the original or the remake. I don't think I'll get to both, but I'll see what I have available on my streaming services, and yeah. I'm thinking the movies do it a little bit differently from clips I've seen and things, but we'll see. Very good story. And the next novella that I read is again from this book. It's called There's a Long, Long Trail a Windin' from Russell Kirk, and it was originally published in 1976. And this was a really, really interesting haunted house story. It follows I don't know what an appropriate term is, unhoused person, a homeless person that kind of wanders the country, and he gets stuck outside in this terrible storm, so he's searching for somewhere to spend the night, get warm, stay alive, and he finds this house in the middle of nowhere. It's definitely abandoned, and it was written in a very eerie kind of way, describing this house. And he finds a diary from a young girl who used to live in the house, and he kind of starts piecing together this weird this terrible history. Something bad happened in this house, and then some supernatural occurrences start to happen, but it was done in such a cool way. And yeah, I really loved There's a Long, Long Trail a Windin'. It's like part mystery, part haunted house story, and I really got hooked into that story. Now we're moving into the 2000s. And what I read for the 2000s was a bunch of zombie stories from this anthology, Zombies, More Recent Dead. I read 6 stories. Actually, it was 2 poems and 4 stories, short stories, about zombies in here. But I'm only going to talk about 4 of them. There was one short story by Caitlin R. Kiernan, which I just cannot get into their writing. It is very experimental. It's very like fever dream, like what's going on. Like I just cannot follow the plot, and so I have no idea what it was about. I guess it was about zombies, but I have no idea how. I did not get zombie out of it at all. So I'm not going to talk about that one. And there was also a poem by Neil Gaiman, which I don't feel the need to talk about. But what I will talk about is a poem by Michael A. Arnzen called Rigmarole. It was a really interesting poem about zombies. And I have not read anything quite like this. It is about someone who knows the exact part of the brain that is affected, or like a certain part grows in the brain that is like the zombie part of the brain. And he gets this boy, he's telling this like his apprentice about this part of the brain, and he gets this part out of the brain of a dead zombie, and he has the boy eat it, and it makes him into a zombie. So now they're both zombies, and they hunt zombies. That was from 2005. And now Trail of Dead by Joanne R. Anderton from 2007. And this is about kind of a bounty hunter that is trying to find a necromancer because they saw a bunch of living dead zombies going through, and the only way there would be zombies around is if there was a necromancer. So it's another interesting twist on zombies. Necromancer hunter. So that was a really cool story. Then there was Kitty's Zombie New Year by Carrie Vaughn, which is about a woman who goes to a she's dreading going to this fancy New Year's party because she knows she's going to be the only one there who is single and has no one to kiss, and because she had just gotten out of a relationship. And then when she gets to the party, like that should have been the least of her worries, because there are some wild zombie things going on in their city. And then the final story I want to talk about is I Waltzed with a Zombie by Ron Gouliard from 2009, which was a really cool story. It was about a director of schlock, low budget B movies, monster movies in the golden age of Hollywood. So it's kind of a period piece, and he wants to make this musical about zombies, like a musical comedy about zombies. And it's just about a lot about the golden age Hollywood and what it would take to make this kind of bizarre kind of movie. And of course, there's an actual zombie type subplot as well that was very, very interesting. Another very unique take on the standard zombie tale. So I am impressed with this collection. I only read 6 of the things, but they are way, like, they go beyond like the typical zombie story that we all know and love. Now we're going into the 2010s, and I have 2 graphic novels from 2010. First one is The Walking Dead, Volume 2. Miles Behind Us. I really love the TV show, The Walking Dead, and this is my second volume I've read from the series, but I actually really like the comics as well. They follow the show quite a bit. They're not exactly the same. Like, you can't make it exactly the same, but a lot of it is the same. And I just love the show and so much that I loved reading the original source material a lot. But it's about a group of survivors trying to survive in the zombie apocalypse, and they have to leave their original spot where they were camping out, and they end up at this farm with a big family with a farmer and his daughters. And then the families, all these new characters are introduced, and then you find out secrets of the family. It's a good one. And then I read iZombie, Dead to the World. This is volume 1 from Vertigo. I love iZombie TV show on the CW. It used to be. So I wanted to read the graphic or the comic series. It is different than the show, like the whole setup, like the how zombies are is the same, and the main character is very similar to the main character. It's like the same main character from the show, but there's a lot more lore going on in the graphic novels, and she is not like a person who does autopsies, an examiner, medical examiner in the graphic novels like she is in the show. So it doesn't have a lot of the same characters, but it does have good characters. I actually got this signed at a Comic-Con by one of the actors in the TV show. He was like, well, and this was before I had read it, and because I just read it. He's like, well, my character's not in the comics because they changed the whole story, but that's cool that he signed it. Yeah, by the guy that plays the detective partner for our main character. It's been a while since I watched it, and I was trying to see where I could stream it, and I can't find anywhere. I could buy episodes for like $3 a piece on Amazon. And I don't know if I need to rewatch it that bad. But I really did like it. Okay, next from the 2010s is My Life as a White Trash Zombie by Diana Rowland from 2011. Another zombie one. This was the book club pick for the Fright Club, hosted by Cliff's Dark Gems and Secrets Read. And the zombie is very similar to the zombies in this book. Again, not as much lore and like getting into where they came from and all that kind of stuff, but the zombies are just a little bit different in these books, where they still look like themselves, they still look human, but they have to eat brains or else they start to decompose and look like a real zombie, and after enough time they would actually become like a zombie, like a brainless zombie. But it's about this young woman who has had trouble with the law and pills, and she gets in trouble and somehow gets this job driving a van for the morgue. So transporting bodies from crime scene to the morgue, and then she helps with autopsies and stuff like that after she is turned into a zombie, and it's kind of humorous. It's kind of a mystery. It's kind of a medical examiner story, like figuring out the clues of what's going on, like a police procedural. Kind of reminded me a lot of the iZombie television show, because that takes place in the morgue and figuring out what happened with all these bodies and that sort of thing. I did like that quite a bit. And that is a series, the White Trash Zombie series, so I could read more, potentially. Next is The New Hunger by Isaac Marion. This is a Warm Bodies novella. Warm Bodies is a really interesting zombie story, like a love story with a zombie, and The New Hunger is like a prequel to it, and it's just a little novella, and it follows completely different characters. It's a girl and her brother, so like young adult age range, but I don't know that the content would really be for young adults, but it is a sad, bleak story. It was a good one, and I love these kids, and I was completely rooting for them on their journey to survive alone, no adults, just these kids, trying to survive the zombie apocalypse. Super sad. There's one other novella, I think, and then I'll be done with that series. Next, Monstrous Volume 3, Haven. This is by Marjorie Liu. I love the art style of this comic series, by Sana Takeda. This is like a dark fantasy. When I started reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is more fantasy than horror probably, but it does have horror like creatures, some Lovecraftian type creatures. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, but like the old ones, old gods type of thing. But it also has talking cats. It has the cutest little squirrel girl. Yeah. Oh dear, so good. I love the art. It's very dark fantasy, leaning into horror elements, which I love. So I'm glad I got to continue on with this series. This needs to go back to the library right now. Along with that and that. They're going back today. Had to get this wrap up done first though. Let's see. The last things that I finished so far for Horror Mayhem. These are all Horror Mayhem. No more zombies. Nope. And they're all 2025 new release books. So let's talk about those. First one fits perfectly for Horror Mayhem because it's very short little thing. The Unworthy by Agustina Bastarrica, and this is translated. It was previously published in Argentina, and then now in 2025 we have English translation. So that is great. This is a post-apocalyptic dystopian future, which is like the bleakest, darkest of bleak, you know. It's about a woman in this cult in the middle of this barren wasteland, and there's this tiny garden where this cult is, and survivors will come and may get accepted into this cult where they can have some food, some shelter, some water that isn't going to kill them. And it is so incredibly dark. They believe in sacrifices, punishments, just horrible, horrible, horrible. And it's all written in kind of journal entries of this one woman writing down everything that's happening in this place and what she is doing from day to day. It chronicles her relationship with another woman. There's some sort of supernatural seeming things going on, but it's really, really subdued. Like, it's mostly about the real world horror of this situation. The world is dying. Nature pretty much gone. Water is polluted. That kind of thing. And most of it's evaporated. Yeah. Bleak, bleak, bleak. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But I could see people not enjoying the epistolary writing style, the stream of consciousness, like her thoughts at the moment of what's going on. It's kind of a puzzle to piece together sometimes. But I liked it. Then I read Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is not short. It's a long one. But I love this book. It's a historical horror in the Wild West times about a Blackfeet Indian that is turned into a vampire and is hunting the plains for the buffalo hunters, and he is telling his story to this priest, asking for like a confession. So it involves, there's a current day timeline of this woman who works at the University of Wyoming who is researching these journals of a Lutheran pastor in 1912 who is recounting his encounters with this vampire who is unburdening his soul to him. The pastor has a interesting story as well as the vampire, of course. It's really sad because it chronicles what has happened to Good Step, that's the vampire, his tribe, and the buffalo herd that they depend on. Yeah, it's so good. It's probably my favorite Stephen Graham Jones, because I love a good historical horror. The last book I have to talk about was an arc. Oh, wait. Okay, wait. The Unworthy. I read this for the quarterly read-along on Kelly Hooked on Books Discord, where we're reading a translated work by woman every quarter, and so I'm glad I got to read that. And then The Buffalo Hunter I read for the Creepy Book Club. It was the April pick, but I didn't get to it until May. And then Kelly Hooked on Books is also doing a read-along, like a buddy read, this month in May for this, so that worked out quite nice. Get myself another horror read in that I have highly been anticipating. And then the last book was an arc from NetGalley. It is The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig, and I have a full review of this book up on my channel. I will have that linked down in the description, about a group of friends, teenagers, that find a random staircase in the woods, seemingly going to nowhere. One of their friends goes up and disappears, and years later, the staircase reappears, and they go up to find out what happened to their friend all those years ago. It was very, just dark and gritty, dirty feeling, great atmosphere and setting. The characters were interesting, and I really enjoyed it. So that is everything horror related that I have read and watched so far in May. I might have a few more things for the last 5 days of May, including some more stories from this, because I am reading from this every day, as well as I have 3 other horror reads going right now, and I will also have some fantasy, sci-fi, and thrillers to talk about in my next update in the beginning of June. I hope you liked this long, rambly update. I had a lot to talk about, and let me know if you are participating in Horror Mayhem or Zombiethon. What reads have you been enjoying? Have you read any of the books and stories that I've talked about in this video, or the movies? What did you think of them? And I will be back very soon with another book-related video. Thanks Bye.